Yes. So thank you very much, and welcome to Think Yoruba First. We remain a pro Yoruba nationalist platform. And we strongly believe that the Yoruba people need their own country that will become a safe haven for every Yoruba people, no matter where they are. In the continent, or wherever they are across the world. My co-mods, I say hello to you. Our special guest, Bonka, our brother in arms. I welcome you all, Obìnrin Àkànṣe, Aye, Akinkanju, Akara Ogun, Are, Olori, Michael, and every other person in the room. So we're gonna start this conversation on this documentary. But just before I go, actually, one of the parts where I'm going to start, I'm being selfish here. Actually, the part where I'm going to be starting from is where one of our patrons actually, showed up in the conversation, and that is Professor Wande. And yeah, just let's listen to his part from the documentary, and then the questions and answers will start. And yeah, so this African culture to find a way to survive it all. And is the largest West African city. At this part, they're actually singing a song. This song is particularly sung in Trinidad and Tobago. During the Shango festivals, and it's talking about Láyé wa ní ní ìlú Ìbàdàn. And from the documentary, they just basically sang the song for years, until they found out that they were actually singing about the Ibadan people. If you can remember very, very well that the people of Ibadan and Oyole were actually people who believed strongly in Shango. So we'll continue the conversation and give you some little clips here and there of the documentary. Despite all the hardship and brutality, this African culture to find a way to survive it all makes you wonder, who are these Yorubas? And what's actually special about this particular group of Africans? The Yoruba people are a people of West Africa, but the Yoruba believe that they are the original people of the world. They believe that they were the first people to be created. They were created by the Orisha, their divinities, who descended from heaven above. 400 plus 1 Orisha. And they landed in Ilefe. From Togo to
Please check your message.
Republic of Benin to Brazil. One consensus of all the Yorubas was that Ile Ife is their origin, and their ancestor from Ife is Oduduwa. We talk about Oduduwa, we talk about Obatala, we talk about Ogun, we talk about many of these are Yoruba gods and goddesses. And they founded Yoruba civilization on what will eventually end. All right. Mr. Bunker. So let's Mr. Bunker, are you there with us? I need to confirm if I can even hear you.
Yes, I'm here. If you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. Once again, he has been able to say that the Yoruba people believe strongly, that they started their life and civilization from Ilefe. Is there anything you would like to point out from there? That we've probably lost that conversation or that originality as sets of Yoruba people.
Oh, absolutely. Yoruba nation started out as an organic nation. So when I say an organic nation, it started out from foundation. So it started out as a family, and then it moved to clans, then it moved to Agbole, then it moved to 13 city states. And so everything about Ile-Ife started out in a very, very organized structure. And you will notice that one of the earliest civilizations in the world, even though they've played it down very, very, very much, is the Nok civilization. The Nok civilization rivals the Egyptian civilization, and the Nok civilization happened around that River Benue region, around on that River Niger. That was the first civilization that dealt with iron, with metal works, with bronze, with sculptures and things like that. And most of the connections that would end up with Ife and all of this have interconnections with this. But now they grew up to like a 13 city states. Then they call them provinces in English. There was the Ideta province, which used to be one of the kind of leading provinces. And Ideta province, the leader of Ideta province at that time was Obatala. So they were now realizing that they had to have a more centralized system because they were getting very big. They were getting very large. So they needed to have a kind of more organized way of governing themselves. So Obatala was chosen as their administrator. So he was the one in charge of Ife when Oduduwa showed up and the war happened, and it polarized Ife into two groups. There were some groups that fought with Oduduwa because of what the divination said, and there were some groups that are conservatives who stood with Obatala. And so it was from here. Now Oduduwa was the one that now kind of expanded Oyo Ife to now expand into what we call Yoruba country today. With the help of a diviner, or they call them diviners, but I'll call him a philosopher, and his name was Orunmila. Orunmila was the one that wrote the constitution that Yoruba people lived with for over 800 years before the invasions from the north and finally the British invasions. And that's why you'll notice that the structures of governing is the same across the board all over Yoruba country at that time. It always has that three-tier system, and it always had that rejection of tyranny, because the when you build civilization on divination, which used to be the case in those times, there's always what do you call it, fair play, ruling with a conscious mind, with a good mind. So now Oduduwa and his nobility were the ones that expanded it across to the Yoruba country region. Then the person that will build the military base, the first military structure, is his grandson, Oromiyo. So he was the one that started the Ashore structure, the the bodyguard system, all the kind of, and so he was the one that now built what you would call the barracks. He found the two avenues where enemies could penetrate into Yoruba land, and he built. Not only did he build very powerful warrior cities there, he also kind of had negotiations with potential troublemakers in those regions, so like to the Nupe region, to the northern region where he founded Oyo. He had a pact with the Bariba people and the Nupe people, who were very dangerous people and could have posed a lot of if he did not have that relationship with Baribas. I have a feeling that Yoruba country may not have survived. uh and I mean, I won't go into that now because I don't want to take a lot of time. But then he also went to Benin, and he had a pact with the ruling house then, who were the Ogiamians, and they kind of had a new hybrid kingdom, which is called the Benin Kingdom today. Revisionist has done a lot of interesting change of stories about that, and I try to avoid it as much as possible. But of course, we know the history, so that's how it expanded into what you saw recently. But now they divided it into four strong blocks, and one kingdom now kind of protects each of the blocks. Now to the Ife block, it protected all the states around. It started during the reign of a king called Obalufon Opopodirin. He was the one that started kind of to now build that block where Ikirun and all those places came under it. And then Ijebu also built their block, and that's where Remo and all those places now kind of came into. Then there used to be Ota. Ota does not exist again today. Ota also had the blocks in the interiors, and they used to be the protectors of the Egba people before the time of Alafin Ojigi. And then we have Oyo that kind of protected the blocks to the north. So that was how, with wisdom, with proper thinking, proper planning, our ancestors evolved into what you call Yoruba country today. Let me yield here so that we can go on with the sessions.
Yes, thank you,
Yes.
thank you very much, Arakurin Bunka. Thank you. Like I said, I'm sorry, we were meant to start the video from the beginning, but seeing our patron on the documentary was something I just couldn't. I think it was that part that actually sparked the documentary for me. A lot of it were times when I had to sit down, and have a rethink on how did we lose our own people. A lot of times the documentary called for a sober reflection, but like I said, our patron, we just had to listen to him. So we're going to be going back to the beginning. We're going to listen for 15 minutes, and then we're going to cut in and have some question and answers. And if you want to come up, please do come up in case you have any questions. And in case you don't have any questions, you can just write it in the comment. I would make sure I'm reading that. But then once again, welcome to Think Yoruba First, a pro-Yoruba nationalist platform. We strongly believe that Yoruba land should be a safe haven for every Yoruba people who carry the Oduduwa bloodline. So let's listen and just sit back, grab a popcorn, not popcorn actually, grab an obi and emu oguro, and let's enjoy.
From the west coast of Africa to North and South America, Cuba, and the whole Caribbean, the Yorubas came in mass. From the 15th to the 18th century, enslavement of the Africans was the most lucrative business all over Europe. From the Atlantic coast of Badagry, Cotonou, port of no return, to the Gorée Island in Senegal, 90% of the enslaved Africans taken out of the continent took their last steps on the west coast of Africa.
Au premier abord, nous avons les Portugais, qui sont les tout premiers à venir qui sont venus d'Ahomey ici en 1580. Nos ailes sont envoyés dans les Amériques, mais la majorité sont envoyés au Brésil, en Salvador de Bahia, en Haïti, au Cuba et un peu dans les Caraïbes.
Hundreds of African culture and ethnic groups left the continent, but only one remains visible till date in the New World: the culture of the Yorubas.
Growing up in Trinidad, the culture that I identified as African was Yoruba, Shango people, and Shango is Yoruba.
Olodum é uma palavra de origem urubá. A palavra completa é Olodumare. Da cultura negra no Brasil, no país, a influência veio diretamente da cidade de Oió e Ifé.
If I free my mind and let it go, I would say that we are an extension of the Yoruba land.
It is all around us, from city to city, in music and fashion, religion and arts.
it was not only the Yorubas that was taken as slaves. You have Angola people, you have Mozambique people, you have from different places. Why actually people talk about the Yorubas? Why they don't talk about the other African cultures?
The Yorubas were not the only one taken as slaves. There are other tribes from Ghana, Sierra Leone, Gabon, up to Congo. But the Yoruba culture was very strong.
As of 1976, over 3,000 literatures has been written on the Yorubas, making it one of the most researched cultures of the world. Hundreds of culture and traditions landed with the Africans to the New World. But this particular West African culture might have survived it all. With dresses that are different from the Western style, masquerade carnivals, then the king and his council of chiefs. I bet the question on your mind will be, is this Africa? The correct answer will be no. Welcome to Oyutunji, the African village in South Carolina.
Oyatunji was developed by African Americans who were seeking something African but did not have a spiritual community in which to do so. The 1960s, this was a very powerful time in African people's history in this country. We as a people were tired of being second class, third class, fourth class citizens in this country. Some people say there was two movements. There was the civil rights movement and there was the cultural movement.
I think this march will go down as one of the greatest demonstrations for freedom and human dignity ever held in the United States.
The Yoruba cultural restoration movement began in Harlem, New York, back around 1956. Baba wanted African culture, but he did not know which culture to practice. As you know, Yoruba culture is all over the world. However, the African Americans never developed a culture based on African traditions. In North America, we are descendants primarily of Yoruba and Dahomian. In this area was mostly Sierra Leone and Ghana, but the rest of Louisiana and parts of South Carolina were Yoruba and Benin or Dahomey. And so Baba met a gentleman from Curacao. His name was Chris Oliana, and he knew people in Cuba. So they traveled to Cuba, and when he came back with the culture of the Yoruba.
It has always been used as a source of pride by people of African descent throughout the New World. This group of African Americans uncovered the Yoruba culture when the Afros began to grow. Black pride was on the rise in the United States.
It was during the civil rights ages, and we were opening up Yoruba culture. We were opening Yoruba culture to the black people that had no knowledge of where they came from, had no knowledge of who they were, had no knowledge of ancestors.
They would make clothes and they would go out and give them to dashikis. That's how the dashiki became popular. Y'all said, just make them up. Go out and just give them away.
What was happening in the 60s was rather overshadowed what Abba Futula was doing because Martin Luther King had a massive movement. My father, the first king, he was arrested many times for practicing African tradition in North America. Baba didn't even care. His biggest care was the re-implementation and restoration of African culture so that children in America forever and ever after he's gone will know about the culture of their ancestors. And we filter that culture through Yoruba.
Research into who we are before we get here dominates the minds and movements of the African Americans in the 50s and the 1960s. Lots of African heritage and history were uncovered.
Most of the people who came to America came from the west coast of Africa. Oyotunji means Oyo rises again.
Between the 14th to the 18th century, one of the largest and most formidable empire in West Africa was the Yoruba Empire of Oyo, spreading along the coast of modern-day Nigeria, Republic of Benin, Togo, and some part of Ghana.
Baba realized that Africans in America did not know their culture. Baba sought to teach them through the dress, through the language, through an understanding of the sociology of the Yoruba people. Baba built this African village here on the old plantation land. This is a part of the old plantation. And so Oyotunji is sitting in the light of the plantation. Abai Funtala was the first one African born in America to return to the indigenous traditions of the Yoruba people.
Collectively and individually, people stood up against oppression in various forms in that era. The founder of this village took pride in the culture of the Yorubas and stood up against injustice with it.
I am one of the living founders left from New York City. And we worked very closely with the Black Panthers. And all Serg had to do was snap his fingers and they were there. They were very loyal to Your Highness.
Baba was a part of a group called the Republic of New Africa. Their idea was they were going to take over 5 southern states with guns and military. They were going to take over Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. And the reason they wanted to do this was because they said, we built South Carolina. We built all of those states. As Black people for 300 years, we built all of that. At one time in South Carolina, the Europeans who would travel from Massachusetts or New England to have a vacation in South Carolina, they called it a black country. They said this is more like a black country than a white colony. Because in South Carolina, Africans outnumbered the Europeans 17-1. Because they were bringing so many Africans from West Africa to South Carolina, the state legislature had to pass a law. They would have concurrent ships coming in back to back to back to back. So they went to Detroit, Michigan at Aretha Franklin's father's church. Aretha Franklin's father's church was the place where a lot of people would come. Historically, it was a place to talk about the movement and what we needed to do to get from under oppression. Detroit Police Department showed up and just unloaded on the church.
They just came in and they started shooting up the church. We had women and children with us. Our soldiers fired back until they had no more ammunition. Meanwhile, the Black Panthers got a hold of what was happening to us. They came immediately.
The people who began the village came from the Black Panthers, they came from the Martin Luther King movements, they came from the civil rights movements, the Malcolm X movement, Stokely Carmichael. They were fired up.
From the Adunde Festival in Philadelphia, the largest African American festival in the United States, to the south, traces of Yoruba culture continued to be seen in the United States. What preceded the civil rights movement, though, was the era of slavery. Fighting for freedom and maintaining one's identity was an uphill battle for people of African descent. This group, the Yorubas, relentlessly left clues of their passage everywhere they landed.
It was
africanos que vieram para cá escravizados.
All right. uh, I mean, like I said, um, the documentary is an eye opener. You know, so many facts, so many things that I basically had no idea about, and so many things for us to reflect on. So some of the points I wrote down was the fact where it was mentioned that as at the 18th century, the Yoruba people had already written down 3,000 literatures. You know, and I think I would love to ask, Marakurin Bunka. Not yet, don't answer just yet, but just help me hold on to this question. What happened to those 3,000 literatures? Were they destroyed? Did work stop with them? You know, that's going to be my question. Another question I have, I think I'm going to place this to Are, is how come it took us this long to have a documentary like this? Um, you know, I think the best part for me, you know, also so far into the 15 minutes is that, you know, the founding of Oyotunji, if I'm correct, you know, or in 1970 by Oba Efuntola Adelabu Adefunmi. You know, I think it's something amazing to even see that despite so many years, um, you know that you know, despite so many years, you can still see people who have, you know, probably lost connection. You know, sorry, I am sorry. I said something wrong. I think what I said wrong was that about 3,000 literature had been written about the Yoruba people. You know, and the question is where are all this? That will be my question. Where is everything, and how come we're just getting to know about this just now? You know, I think a wonderful part also is to see the part that, you know, the Yoruba people also took part in the civil rights movement. You know, I don't know. Is there anybody who want to point out something that I probably missed? You know, you can just jump in at any time. Is anybody there? You know, did I miss something? You know, Aya Kamara.
You also missed the point where one woman, one lady said, out of all the cultures, the
Yes.
enslaved brought to the Americas, North America, South America, Central America, it was only the Yoruba culture that survived and became supreme in that corridor. That everywhere they went to, they left their footprints, and that actually says something that the Yoruba people are highly conservative people. So if any Yoruba man wants to hide his self-destructive behavior under the fact that Yoruba people are liberal, that is not true. We are a very highly conservative people who build conservative society. So that is what I thought you missed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Is there anybody else who probably want to mention one or two things from the first 15 minutes that I probably missed? You know, yeah.
Hello, hello, good afternoon or good evening, everyone.
Good afternoon, Ma. Yes, you can add to something that I probably missed in the first 15 minutes.
Well, sorry, I've just joined actually because I saw the information on Facebook. But I heard from the last speaker, I just want to say just one or two things. And that is, as we Yorubas, I think we should be so proud of ourselves. Honestly, I am so proud of being Yoruba. And the reason why I say this, and I always say it, is that we are extremely unique if you look at Yorubas very well, apart from the way we are, our custom, the way we speak, the way we think, our ancient fathers, the way they thought, everything about them is so unique. And we are also one of the most important tribe in Africa, even I would say in the world. And why do you think other people who are not even Yorubas want to come and live and learn about Yorubas and about the spirituality and the culture? Why do you think our brothers and sisters from other parts of the world wants to trace? They could have gone to other places in Africa, but there's some that keeps pulling them back to Yoruba. So there's something beautiful and unique about us, and I think we should be proud of that. We should cherish that, and and also not to be too hard on ourselves, because that's one thing I find with Yorubas. We are too hard on ourselves. We are too critical of ourselves and of each other. We can talk in a way that will make each other to inspire us rather than putting us down. Because I think we're very unique. We're very tolerant. We're so beautiful, including our language. So that's what I want to say for now. I'm sure I'll have some talk about or say about later. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Yeah. I can see Yoruba Goddess and Olabode. So Yoruba Goddess, go please.
Hello.
Then Olabode.
Hi everyone. So yeah, I've missed a bit of this session, so I don't know what you guys have covered so far. But I did watch the first 30 minutes of Bigger Than Africa yesterday. And one of the very interesting things, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anybody, is how the Yoruba that were obviously were sent on slave ships from Africa to Latin America, the US, etc. How they coded, the orishas. So they still worshipped their own orishas, but they were not allowed to worship them openly. So what they did was they coded it, beyond the saints, the European or Christian saints. So they knew that, and I can't remember the names of which saints were the different orishas, but I thought that was so interesting how they were able to continue to project their I wouldn't say religion because people say Ifa is greater than religion, but how they were still able to worship deities, orishas, you know and it wasn't it wasn't openly done. How they were able to propagate the Yoruba culture, you know and the fact that even today in Cuba, in Brazil, in Trinidad, in I think it was even South Carolina, that there are communities that still use Yoruba
Ah,
words, that
Yoruba
still.
Goddess. You want to finish documentary? We'll
Oh
find
God,
you.
that's what I was saying. I'm not.
Ah,
That's
we'll
why I was a
find
bit
you.
worried that I don't know what you guys have covered. All right, let me be quiet. Let me be quiet. I don't want to say too
All right,
much.
all right. Thank you. I mean, just like I said, I was just making sure that yeah, Akara, 1 minute. I was just making sure that, I didn't forget. Maybe there was something I forgot in the first 15 minutes to re-mention, you know. So Egbon Labode, over to you. Then we come to
Baba,
Akara.
you don't understand how joyous I am to have. Like, I was in this room, I said, nah, I must visualize it. So I went to Netflix and I was watching. And it's interesting now, Baba, Oba, what's his name again? Sorry, let me quickly.
Oba Efuntola Adelabu
Um,
Adefunmi.
Ofuntola, yes, that's it. So how Baba built the villages. Now, for those who are interested in architecture, you would see that that's the way we built our houses in like Nigeria, where it's called in Yoruba land, where we call Nigeria today. And for me, that was like very interesting. But yesterday we were having a conversation, and someone said, we've lost our consciousness. And I said to you that we've not lost our consciousness. This is an evidence. Yoruba consciousness can never, ever be lost. The world will end before Yoruba consciousness is lost. There are differences in what is lost, but that consciousness, we can see that that consciousness is even bigger than Africa. And you see, Are Gonka, I'll take you up on some things we've been debating some time ago. When I say we must reconnect with certain of our lines, it's not because we just have to, or this thing. They are our people, true and true, and we can see that now. I thank God for the person. Whoever did this is a blessing to Yoruba land. And I believe this is the beginning of many more things to come for the Yorubas. Now, listen, another thing, they said over 3,000 literature has been done on the Yoruba people. I think that's even too small. The energy the Yoruba people relied on is necessary for us to understand. The vaccine the Yoruba people relied on is necessary to understand. I think we have more documentation to do. We are at stage 1 and we are going to stage 1,000. So the work has just started. Thank you.
I love that. Ishesheshe Bereni. I love that part. Um, Don Ifaruju, welcome on stage. Hey guys, please, if you're in the room, kindly help us use this bigger than Africa picture. And the most important part, this is a wonderful piece of art done by one of our Yoruba brothers. And if we don't make noise about it, who would? So make the noise about it. Let's get the views eyes. Let our brother, let him, be smiling to his bank account either ways. But the most
We have to be very careful. Is the KBC here?
um
Please.
not yet. I don't think so. I think if he's here, we would know. I'll just wait for Aya Camera to tell us when KBC is in. Aya Camera, are you there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
No, it's not yet here.
All right.
But I
Just
will check back.
Yeah,
I will.
just let me know in the back channel. Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
I will.
Egba Michael, I see you, but I'll let Akara Ogun go for now. We have to time people. I'll let you go for 1 minute. I'll let Egba Michael also go for 1 minute, and then we continue because there's still a lot to talk about. I think just to mention, it was really nice and wonderful that Egbon Labode actually made mention of the architects or of I think architect, yeah, Oyinbo man salon be by of the building, the way it was constructed. Exactly, let me use that word. Of Oyotunji, really wonderful. That was the reason why I said, let's stop every 15 minutes and remind ourselves of what I have missed out. So Akara Ogun, over to you in 1 minute, please.
ẹ má bínú mi mọ̀ pé mo ti change kinní so ẹ ṣeun gan tí èmi ń bá báwọn èèyàn jiyàn wípé mi ò tí ì mọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀hùndọ́ mi ì tí ì wo gan ṣùgbọ́n tí n bá ń bá àwọn èèyàn jiyàn wípé kọ́ máa pè mí láfíríkà kọ́ máa pè mí ní Yorùbá àbọ̀mọ aládé ọ̀bọ̀mọ káàró òjìrè wọ́n máa ń sọ pé àti bá ń make argument yẹn àwọn èèyàn máa ń sọ pé bóyá nǹkan ṣàkàrà oògùn ó ti nágídí jù ṣùgbọ́n agídí mi òun lẹ ti gbọ́ nípa àwọn kan náà ń ronú wípé Yorùbá kì í ṣe Áfíríkà torí ìran ni Yorùbá ju nǹkan tá à ń pè Áfíríkà ọ̀dọ̀ wọn lọ́hùn ṣùgbọ́n Yorùbá òun ṣe Áfíríkà Yorùbá ju Áfíríkà lọ inú mi dẹ̀ dùn mo kàn fẹ́ pàkíyèsí wa sí nǹkan kan ẹ má jẹ́ ká máa sọ pé Yorùbá lè parun ẹ má jẹ́ ká máa tanra wa o kò sí nǹkan tí ò lè parun láti má jẹ́ kí Yorùbá parun ọwọ́ gbogbo wa ló wà ẹ má bínú fún àwọn èèyàn wa tó wà lọ́yọ̀ tún jí sóye yín mi ò gbé yìnbó dáadáa ló jẹ́ kí n máa sọ Yorùbá lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ mo máa ń ní yìnbó mọ́ lẹ́kọ̀ọ̀kan náà bí ẹ̀mí bá ṣe darí mi bí èṣù bá ṣe darí mi ni so ẹ má sọ mi tábà tí kò lè parun á parun kò dẹ̀ ní sí nǹkan kan tó máa ṣẹlẹ̀ ó máa parun kò ní sí nǹkan kan á parun á kò máa wọnú museum ni bí ààrẹ ṣe máa ń sọ torí ẹ̀ ààrẹ gbogbo àtọ́ fi wà online tí wọ́n fi ń ṣe ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́ lánàá ara iṣẹ́ kó má bàa parun òun ni wọ́n ń ṣe yẹn. Tá a bá sọ pé ó máa parọ́ ta kàn ń sọ̀rọ̀ à ń fẹ́ náà ọ̀rọ̀ sọ a kàn ń sọ̀rọ̀ àṣìṣe kankan ó máa parọ́ mọ̀nàká tí ó dẹ̀ sí nǹkan kan tó máa ṣẹlẹ̀. Mo dẹ̀ jẹ́ ká tún fẹ́ wò nǹkan kan bí àwọn bàbá wa bí wọ́n ṣe jẹ́ akínkanjú ọmọlúwàbí tí bàbá wa Ọ̀rúnmìlà gbélé fún wọn bí wọ́n ṣe jẹ́. Ṣé ẹ mọ̀ wípé ẹrú ló kó wọn lọ síbẹ̀ bí wọ́n ṣe gbé Ọ̀yọ́ tí Ọ̀yọ́ tó wá jí orúkọ tí wọ́n sọ bẹ̀ yẹn Yorùbá ní orúkọ tó jẹ́ wípé ìtàn bá sọ nǹkan ó dẹ̀ máa kó gbogbo nǹkan pọ̀ sínú nǹkan tẹ́ẹ̀dẹ̀ ní ẹ̀dẹ̀ kẹ́ ẹ tó mọ̀ ẹni tí ó bá ná fojúsùn ni ìgbà tí wọ́n kọ́ àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n tún lọ síbì kan tó tún wá sọ wípé wọ́n ronú wọ́n sọ pé Ọ̀yọ́ tún ti jí o ẹ lè rí wa ẹ mọ ọgbà nígbà gbogbo tọ̀tẹ̀ máa ń sọ fún wa tẹ̀sán pọ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ wọ́n dọ́ Ọ̀yọ́ wọ́n tún jí wọ́n tún Ọ̀yọ́ wọ́n tún wá ṣe wọ́n tún kó lọ síbi tẹ́ ń pé wọ́n jájèjì síbẹ̀ wọ́n sọ pé ibi iyò báyìí a tún ti gbé ìdìde so Ọ̀yọ́ tún jí so ẹ má jẹ́ ká máa parun ibi àwọn bàbá wa ṣe ṣe tẹ́ ẹ bá ìgbà tí mo kọ́ gbọ́n pọ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ tún jí tèmi lọ sẹ́lú lọ ayélujára nǹkan tí mo kọ́kọ́ rí tẹ́ ẹ bá wo ìlú yẹn akàn architecture àwọn Cuba tán lọ wọ́n fún wọn ní ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ nǹkan Èṣù Ògún tó jẹ́ wípé jagunjagun ló máa ń wà ní àárín ìlú àti Èṣù méjèèjì ló wà lọ́yọ̀ tún jí o so ẹ má jẹ́ kí spirituality wa tí ó bá ti fi lè lọ ìṣẹ̀ṣe wa àdéhùnsá tó bá fi lè lọ ẹnu lá máa fi sọ yóò lè pa èdè tá à ń sọ yìí kọ́ ni pé Yorùbá spirituality ni foundation tó gbé Yorùbá tẹ́ ẹ bá lọ ẹ lọ wo màá fún yín ní màá mẹ́nu dún sí yẹn tẹ́ ẹ bá lọ wọ Ọ̀yọ́ tún jí Èṣù ó wà láàrin ìlú Ọ̀yọ́ tún jí Ògún dẹ̀ wà ń bẹ̀ ẹ jẹ́ ká máa mú débẹ̀ yẹn wọ́n dẹ̀ sọ pé Ọ̀yọ́ tún jí so báwọn bàbá wa ṣe ń ṣe láyé ẹjọ́ òun ló wà nínú Ọ̀yọ́ tún jí ẹ ṣeun gan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Akara Ogun. I will just quickly summarize what Akara Ogun said. Akara Ogun is a very strong believer of thinking Yoruba first, and in every avenue he has always shown it, and he has always said it, and he's just once again saying that the documentary has been able to say he had been right all along about the fact that he is a Yoruba man, and that is what matters the most. That the Yoruba people are, have always been a civilization, and he also mentions the fact that he's not one of those. I actually also strongly agree with Akara Ogun there. That he's not one of those who believe that the Yoruba people cannot go into extinction. He doesn't believe it. The only time he believes that we would be sustainable and not go into extinction is when we are proud of the Yoruba language, and when the Yoruba people have their own safe haven called a Yoruba nation. Egbo Michael, over to you in 1 minute, please.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Like, what I have to say is just a continuation of what Mr. Labade had said. Mr. Karagun have said, and I'll keep it fairly short. Is the first part would be this documentary is why ignorance is very dangerous for Yoruba people. It's very important for people to watch it and learn. And it is important because when you watch it and you learn and you internalize it, your dream will be greater than becoming local champion in Nigeria, West Africa. You will dream bigger of the world and stop trying to be local champions. So that's what I want to do. And Yoruba is not a tribe. Please, for the sake of God, Yoruba is not a tribe. Thank you.
All right. Just before we jump in, we are still waiting for our KBSC Adeju Igbe Adefumi to join us. But while we are waiting for that, I think I would this next 15 minutes. There's a lot of Portuguese and and Spanish going into that, but just take it easy. They would continue to speak English, and just to make loud what Obirin Akonshe wrote there, in the chat section, that if Oba Adefumi the first did not make the sacrifice, Yoruba would have died in them. So to go into extinction is actually hard work, and it needs every one of us. Enough of political correctness. Let us make a Yoruba country, a Yoruba land, a safe haven for every Yoruba people around the world. So far, you have an Odudua spirit and line and bloodline in you. You know, Yoruba land is for you. Yeah, so we'll continue now and let's get it started. Hello, everybody. Um, this is Think Yoruba First. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, wonderful week. Um, we have wonderful conversation to have today. The bigger than Africa Netflix documentary